Anyway, I apologize. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the What's All the ERP's Buzz monthly chat series. So excited to have Matt Abbott from Cavallo here to talk about the ISV growth in the BC ecosystem. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
And I'll let you get started since I've monopolized 2 minutes of the time.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Well, thank you very much, Amy. It's a pleasure. And thank you all for attending today. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an exciting time for Cavallo. Many of you probably know us as SalesPad. We rebranded last summer, and part of that, frankly, was an indication of where we're headed and this exciting point, frankly, in the sort of dynamics overall ecosystem and the growth of Business Central and a lot of companies, partners, ISVs, others making interesting decisions about where they're headed. And certainly as we forge a path forward in the BC ecosystem, a key aspect for us is that build versus buy decision. And for us, certainly as an ISV and with other ISVs, it's really attractive to choose the buy decision. And so certainly want to talk today a little bit about Cavallo as well as what we're seeing in the market and talk a little bit about what that means for ISVs. So first of all, just a little bit of history about us. As I mentioned, formerly SalesPad with 19 years of rich history serving small and medium-sized businesses. We were founded in 2003 and have served over 1,000 companies historically, many of which are distributors, also a lot of light manufacturers and other companies that have really a level of complexity that's significant. We have very, very strong workflow engines in our products. And as part of that, we get very sort of embedded with companies that have very high retention, high customer satisfaction, and a sort of laser focus on creating value for our customers. Our founder was a distributor, and with every new feature that he added to the software, he was trying to make his business much more efficient and profitable. So that is part of our DNA in terms of ensuring that our customers do, in fact, become more profitable and more valuable over time. As we have entered the Business Central ecosystem, we have focused initially on 3 particular areas and, of course, built with an expectation of seamless real-time integration with Business Central. And so while we have a standalone web app that really allows us to bring a consumer-grade user interface to Business Central users, we have that real-time integration, so folks do not have to worry about not having a single source of truth data. We absolutely have that. So in terms of the areas that we're bringing forth and the types of features, first of all, the absolute best, most efficient order entry screen for Business Central, hands down. Secondly, an enterprise-grade no-code workflow engine. It is fantastic to see users with just a little poking and prodding, little encouragement, developing their own workflow to guide the flow of orders through their business to ensure that every single order is under control and at the level of profitability that they would expect. And finally, real-time insights right out of the box, no configuration necessary. There are a number of great reporting and BI tools out there. Ours are configured to provide insights immediately. So you don't need to go hire data scientists or report builders. We did that and built it into the software. And so very much oriented around the value that we've been delivering for nearly 2 decades now in a way that is very easily accessible for companies looking to adopt Business Central. And certainly what we've seen in the marketplace is that companies of greater levels of complexity are adopting Business Central in the cloud. And so there's just tremendous growth in the Business Central market. And so wanted to sort of touch on some of the trends that we're seeing. In particular, a very rapidly growing market. And, for those of you that may have attended Directions earlier this year, you would have heard Microsoft state that while they're no longer stating very publicly the user counts, they did say that they have experienced year-over-year growth of 60%, which is incredible. And as they are experiencing that growth, they are pursuing a pretty exciting strategy for folks like us who are ISVs, in that they are encouraging strong ISV participation in the BC ecosystem, and encouraging ISVs to, of course, be very well positioned on AppSource. And some of the data quoted was well over 2,000 apps now on AppSource compared to 450 in 2019. So staggering growth in terms of the availability of solutions that users can certainly seek out as they're experiencing pain points in their business, and find solutions, and then quite often work with their partners to ensure that those solutions are the best fit for their businesses. But in terms of thinking about that last mile of features and addressing specific use cases that are important to, in our experience, distributors, light manufacturers, other complex businesses, those ISV provided apps that are now available at an end user's fingertips and very easily added to the overall Business Central suite for them. Also, I'm sure many of you are feeling the extremely tight market for Business Central expertise. And as we work with partners to talk about our pipeline together, and those businesses that are either adopting or considering adopting our products for the first time, or perhaps migrating from GP, the time that is quoted to actually think about starting a new project is quite often 3 to 6 months out, given how busy partners are, given this great growth with Business Central, but also that tight labor market. And so that really drives to a need to shorten the length of time and reduce the amount of effort, the amount of services potentially are required to deliver a new BC deployment. Again, another reason why it's very valuable to think about those key capabilities that ISVs can bring versus perhaps building out new functionality in Business Central or other tools. So what can you get out of the box to take time out of these projects? Because quite often, once customers have decided that they really do want to make that leap, they want to get through the journey as quickly as possible. And so even thinking about 3, 6 month or maybe even longer delay before even getting started is not something that they really want to consider. Next, certainly Microsoft has priced Business Central to be attractive. And what we often hear is the end customer, as they're considering that migration, as they realize that in truth, quite often it's a redeployment. It really is, in truth, in full honesty, it's a brand new ERP deployment. And there are various tools to make it easier, but given what can feel like a relatively low cost, price tag for the software, there's often a sort of disparity or divergence between the software price and the services price, which, again, recognizes the fact that this really is a new ERP deployment. And therefore, when you think about that price tag, customers are trying to figure out, and partners are trying to help quite often find ways to reduce the cost of services as well. And so you get that, a number of factors here all coming together to point to, all parties looking for ways to take time and effort and risk out of the deployment. Again, pointing to opportunities to buy an ISV provided solution rather than building one, given that tight labor market, the cost and the long time associated with that. That said, as we certainly have gotten to know more and more of the partners, particularly coming from the historically nav-oriented, part of the Dynamics channel, there really is a variation a significant variability in in approaches and cultures. And it's very interesting. There's a spectrum of partners, and some really have leaned very heavily towards working with ISVs. Some are really far down that path, and some, frankly, still have a very strong build it orientation. And with that, it's important, frankly, for us to understand where the various partners sit on that spectrum. Because frankly, we get a little bit more traction out of the gate with those that are more used to and more familiar with working with ISVs. And that's also important, I think, to end customers, right? As they think about what that timeline, cost, and orientation towards build versus buy is. Understanding their partner's orientation is valuable to understand what is likely being proposed in terms of their path to the cloud, if they're moving from an on-prem situation, or a path to Business Central, if could be from another cloud offering. But all of those factors certainly are exciting for us, because we see an ecosystem that is ripe for ISVs, and very important for end customers to be familiar with and leverage ISVs in terms of building that overall solution that is best for their business, but also the one that is lowest cost, lowest risk, and lowest time investment. And so we certainly see a number of exciting things that are valuable for us, and point to really an exciting new chapter for Cavallo. Amy, I know I've shared a lot there in terms of what we're seeing.
No, great
in the market.
insights.
Any perspectives there, or questions that you have?
I have, so things that I've been seeing, and I'd love to get your feedback on this. So obviously a lot of customers are moving from GP to BC, or Microsoft is saying, hey, that's your best path,
sure, so
to speak. And since you, Cavallo, have obviously built your practice in GP as well, and now migrating to BC, are you seeing a lot of customers moving from GP to BC, or are they more hesitant? And do you find that they're asking, hey, I already have your product in GP. Is it going to be cheaper for me to move to BC? Like, why should I have to pay for services again, or whatever it may be?
Right. So good questions. What I would say is that, we tend to serve relatively complicated businesses. And so what I would say is that we're getting a significant amount of interest, and customers starting to test the waters, learn more about Business Central. But frankly, most are doing so relatively cautiously. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is that we're not seeing that big push yet with the sort of more complicated businesses. And frankly, what they're asking us quite a bit about is when we will be ready to support very complex use cases, particularly with our workflow engines. Our workflow in the GP space is extremely robust. In full truth, our workflow engine in the Business Central space is extremely robust, but it doesn't yet address all of the use cases that we address in the GP space. But it's much easier to use, and much more user-friendly, and much more graphical in nature. And in the BC space will allow customers to continuously improve much more easily. And so in terms of the hold up, for lack of a better word or phrase, a lot of customers are asking about that path and seeing our roadmap in the Business Central space, and trying to see where their particular needs will intersect our roadmap. And we're getting closer and closer. In fact, we've got a customer going live in Q4 with 1,000 orders a day, a pretty big customer. And so the feature set's becoming extremely robust, and pretty soon we'll be ready for some pretty large customers. I would say to the last part of your question about whether folks are asking us whether it's, my words, not yours, little bit of a copy paste and therefore no need for services. I think people are much more familiar with the differences now and realizing that this is, really is a replatforming and not a migration. I feel like that conversation has changed over the last 6 months. I would say that 6-9 months ago, there seemed to be more of a perception that it wasn't just a migration. I would also say that it seems like more and more end users are familiar with the history of Business Central and learning more about the fact that it's based off of the Nav or Navision code base and business logic, and realizing that it's built off of a very, very robust ERP, with over 100,000 deployments, serving, frankly, almost all the way up to enterprise level customers. And so I think there's also a growing level of comfort in the robustness of Business Central as an ERP that maybe folks didn't, just because they didn't have the familiarity with that history, didn't realize how much really was under the hood or is coming to BC Cloud or BC SaaS, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously it's going to take time, and like you said, they want to test the waters. They want to be cautious because they've been on these platforms for a really long time. And we all know implementing and changing ERPs is not an easy thing. So never mind all the ISVs that go with it. So it's going to take time, and that's okay.
Right. And we've actually built what we call Bridge, but we built a capability that allows customers who want to start making the journey to Business Central, but de-risk it by allowing them to start just in their back office with Business Central and continue leveraging GP, of course, in a smaller footprint, but GP and SalesPad for their operational processes like order entry and things of that nature, so that they can actually again de-risk the path to Business Central and do so in a much more sort of stepwise fashion. Certainly, as you said, it is a big change, and if you're doing both front office and back office at the same time, it can be quite a bit to bite off. So we're trying to find as many ways as possible to make it an easier transition for customers. We certainly wouldn't want to depict that it's a drop in the bucket, because it is replatforming, and Business Central is a wonderful ERP system, but it is a big change.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, thank you. Did you want to, I know you have some more content to go, so I don't want to monopolize too much.
Oh, sure. And I'll keep this quick. Certainly, if anyone is interested in learning more, our annual, COVID notwithstanding, annual user conference is coming up quick, end of September, panels 2022 here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Would love to share more information about our BC products, our GP products, the paths to the cloud, if anyone is interested. And certainly welcome anyone that is interested in learning more to reach out to me directly, matt.abbott@cavallo.com, or point your phone at this QR code and see our BC offerings listed on our website. So thank you very much for everyone's time and attention. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this month for our monthly chat. Stay tuned, because obviously we have these every month on the second Tuesday at 4 p.m. on Zoom and LinkedIn Live. So thank you again for joining us. And of course, yes, if you have any questions for Matt, feel free to reach out to him. I feel like we could do a topic all on its own about BC and working with partners and customers and the whole transition. So that could be another topic.
Well, thank you so much.
So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.